155, 2.6. All right, 10:13, 14 minutes, 6.6 miles. It's one of my first shots. When I started with the Samsung 8, I'd follow the moon. I'd be doing Uber. I'd be between Uber ride shares, and the moon would just come out, and I'd follow it as long as I could. I used to listen to Elliott Smith. I'm listening to Sharon Van Etten right now. The song 17. It's got that uplifting feel. But we've all been 17 at one time. Sometimes we never feel different than 17. That's what that song's really about. I used to think it was about a young daughter at the age of 17. I think Sharon Van Etten had a son. I have to double check on her Wikipedia. But in the video, it's a daughter. Maybe she has both. It's a heck of a song. Thought about using it, but I'd have to get special permission for this film idea I'm working on called A Cat Name Crook, which is about this. It's about a lot of young, inspiring people. It's about this crooked boss that used to work for Cricket, and it was from Georgia, and he starts finding these ways to get these phones from this guy named Rob the Runner, who's a sprinter. And he takes off with these phones and gives them to Hopperhead for money. And Hopperhead's able to open the phones with this lady he knows that's a savant. She's also a mute. She doesn't speak. And she also has cases of epilepsy, and she speaks in tongues at times. It's the only time she ever speaks is when she'll start speaking in tongues. So she's somewhat a mute, other than speaking in tongues. So I guess she's not really a mute, but she's mostly mute. And she also she has the ability to open the phones through this almost like, it's very Lynchian the way she opens it. It starts shaking, and she starts shaking, and all of a sudden the phone just opens. It's just some almost magic kind of thing. She does this thing where she starts speaking in tongues and grabbing the phone opens. So I usually use those kinds of things in some of my movies. I used it in one of my features called Once in a Lifetime, where the pastor could open a car just by touching it. Anyway, she can open these phones, and Hopperhead can use her power. If you think of the Sam Shepard play, Geography of a horse dreamer, Geography of a Horse Dreamer, and in that he can predict the numbers on the winning horse. This one is she can open it magically by doing this, almost like going into like a fit, and the phone opens. Okay, so that's settled. And then there's a guy named Bird, who I might actually play, who's a YouTuber, that finds out about it because his phone gets lifted from Rob the Runner. And Rob the Runner doesn't know, but he has a hidden tracker in the casing of the phone. It's a different type of tracker, so he's able to track the phone. Almost like an Apple tag. And he finds their kind of hideout. I wanted to use 17 in it because it just fits for some reason. And I love the song. I'm listening to it right now. Well, not at this moment, but I'm listening to it in just a minute. Sharon Van Etten's. Now, that's just a dream soundtrack, you know. But I have other songs, too, that I wanted to use, too. The Charlie Daniels Band, The Devil Goes Down to Georgia. And then there's another song that I came up with called Jesus Bug, because they're all kind of religious. It's a Pure Flix thing. They're all kind of religious. Hopperhead was once a Christian who don't care about the denomination, but they've all been touched by Christ in one way or another, even though one's crooked. And finally, Rob the Runner gets hurt on one of his runs Bird doesn't find out about it, but Bird does take interest in finding out what's going on in their lives. He eventually finds out about it because he can expose them. So Rob the Runner talks Hopperhead and to getting back to the church and getting things back straight. It's a story of redemption. I'm excited about it, and I do want to do it. I've even started looking around at actors and stuff like that, talking about the story. And there's a moment in 17, and that can follow Kitty. Now, Kitty is the lady that can open the phones, and she's also the mute, and she's also got she's been touched by God. She has epilepsy, and she also speaks in tongues. And she goes by Kitty. So there's Hopperhead, there's Kitty, and they communicate. They even pretty much bunk in the same hideout at pretty much throughout the whole story. Their relationship is purely professional, just like in she's kept there, just like in Geography of a Horse Dreamer. She's kept there in a way. There's no real major violence in it. So when Rob the Runner goes to Hopperhead, he gets hurt, and Hopperhead finds out about it, and he tries to tell him, to turn it over, to the Lord, basically. And there's that kind of Alex Kendrick moment of coming to faith, coming to clarity in the Lord. And Hopperhead begins to change his ways for the better, and helping them in a better way, rather than thieving with Rob the Runner. Rob the Runner secretly is a gifted rapper. I know this is kind of crazy. And Bird finds out about him. So Bird becomes friends with them because Bird can expose them. So they have to listen to Bird. He's got the device. So Rob the Runner starts working on this really good song with Hopperhead. And Hopperhead develops it. And eventually the song wins. Eventually it's given over to the song. Now, this is every songwriter's life. Even Sharon Van Etten was wrapped up in it. They all have some kind of connection with the underworld or crime or the neo-noir thing, right? Something was going wrong. She talks about it in some of her songs. And finally, they decide to go legit. And the song wins because of their behavior. Their behavior changes for the good. That's the story of A Cat Named Crook. Now I'm going to listen to 17. So ultimately, we learn in A Cat Named Crook that there is a God. That's what we learn. And there's no beating God. So we give up. We give in. And we surrender. And that's the story to A Cat Named Crook. Oh, and by the way, there is a cat in it. Just like in a lot of my stuff, there's a cat. And the cat just kind of hangs around in the background. Hopperhead has the cat. Originally, I was going to do this like James Bond thing with the cat. And I decided just to make it a domesticated cat. I'm writing about a cat right now in a play. But the cat's just kind of there, and he's kind of a grumpy cat. He may claw somebody in it or something like that. But Hopperhead calls his cat Crook. Come here, little Crook. Because sometimes he'll steal the cat food. Or get up in the cabinets and get the cat food. He's a really smart cat. That's another add-on to the story, just to let you know. That's just a bonus part. That's the MacGuffin. The cat is the MacGuffin. There's stories with a MacGuffin. Maltese Falcon. Maltese Falcon has a MacGuffin in it. The cat is the MacGuffin. So I could go up in front of the producers and say, listen, I can actually point out the MacGuffin in this film. If you think I'm a bunch of BS, it's the cat that we don't care about, but we would rarely ever even see. I'd even talk about it when I pitched it just then. The cat named Crook. And just when you thought you were going to give up on a story, it comes crawling back at you, crawling back in you. demanding to be told. The story demands to be told. The characters want to speak. So the actor fulfills that spirit. Another add-on to A Cat Named Crook, a comparison. There's a play called Orphans that Albert Finney did with Matthew Modine for the film, for the cinema. It's also a play. I did the play. I played Treat. It's probably one of the best roles I ever did. I did it in Grapevine. And a friend of mine played Philip. And there's Harold. But it has that kind of feel to it because there's running in it, right? Rob the Runner is a thief. Hopperhead is a thief as well, but he pretends like he's not. You got Kitty, who's got this kind of power that can help them turn it into a financial thing by opening the phones. You know, I'm talking about like these smartphones for like when they first kind of came out. But it can be present time as well. Hey, getting a phone open present time, trying to open an Apple's impossible. Even had security breaches myself where it'll stop. It's only like the supernatural thing that opens it. You know, the Pentagon can't even open these phones. And the orphans aspect is the desire to want to live in horrible circumstances because these people are barely making it, and they're just desperate. And so Bird too, like most all YouTubers, you can feel it in their energy. They want that 200,000 views or 2 million views because it's money, and Bird has to hold back to protect them. So we see the honor in Bird because really he just wants his phone back. He could expose them, but he doesn't. He starts hanging out with them. You know, hey man, this is a good story. Okay. Just let people know this is a good story. It needs to be told. Cat Named Crook. It'll be advertised as that tonight. I have to try to find a way to get in here. So I do have dialogue to Cat Named Crook. I had started scenes, and I do have a file, and I am waiting. I'm going to finish up the play, and then when the time comes, I'm going to try to lift off A Cat Named Crook. But I don't want anything completely in stone right yet because it's a young story, so it's a fresh story. So I'm going to give it a lot of thought. Then I'm going to probably draw out a diagram and find out who the main protagonist is, which probably you would think it would be Bird because he's the one that possibly can expose him. It might be Hopperhead, and it could be Kitty. And if Kitty's young, 17 would make sense, but she could say something. If she was older, she could show a photo of when she was 17, and it would still work. But there is running in it. I know that for sure. It's meaning there's sprinting and there's running. Rob the Runner runs. I think Kitty may have a scene where she runs and she starts running, and it goes, Sharon Van Etten, 17, arises, and she's running. And then we see in another segment, Rob the Runner's running with someone's phone, and all of this stuff is going on. And you see their desperation. Hop their heads doing something, you know, it's going between each character, and then finally kind of focusing on Kitty. But there's a reason she's running. I think she just takes off running without an answer. She's going on a walk, and then all of a sudden, almost into like a sprint. And you find out that when she was younger, she was probably gifted, you know, and could run or something like that when she was younger. And this thing came about of her, some kind of... Now, I don't want to like quote things like Carrie, you know, like Stephen King's Carrie, but she started to develop and this thing took over, and then she stopped speaking, and then she only spoke in tongues. And then the next thing you know, she had this power that came out of nowhere, that she could do these things like open a phone or turn on a computer or something like that. It's got a magical realism aspect to it. It's not just all complete real to life. We haven't seen those things happen, but some people have. Some people have studied it. Not necessarily telekinesis as much as something that she can control electronics, which is kind of a thing some of my stories are about. Remember in Pastor Rec, once in a lifetime, he touches the car and the car blinks and opens up and the doors open. He just simply says a prayer. She starts speaking the tongues and the phone just opens. This thing came about for a reason. Could also be something Kitty starts maybe shaking her hands, and then the speaking in tongues happens and the phone just opens. You know, it's that kind of thing. It's magical. There's a magical moment to it. It's like, wow, how does she do that kind of thing? But there's a moment maybe where she remembers when she was 17 and she just starts running. And maybe it can flash back to when she was a girl running, and we see her running along the sidewalk, because they're all kind of orphans in a way. And 17 comes up, and then we see Rob the Runner running with someone's phone, you know, doing his thief gig, you know, and running off and getting on a bus and going through the whole thing, or trying to get to the bus, and you see her running to trying to get to something, and that can be cooked up later. When the time comes, what is she running for at this moment? You know, in 17, why is she sprinting at this moment? And then in the song. And there's, you know, of course, I see a tracking shot, and I just see it. I see the movement of it, and it's following them in these alleyways and stuff like that. And maybe towards the end of the song, maybe that's when Rob the Runner gets hurt. I think he gets hurt in a citizen's arrest. I think that's how it happens. And that's when he decides to change, and he has to confront Hopperhead and say, "Hey, man, I can't do this anymore. You know, this just isn't working. Look at me." You know, he's got like, maybe he got hit, you know, and his eyes all black and everything. Maybe he got away. You know, they weren't able to get him, but they were able to get hold of him. It's that thrill of that thing that they go through, you know, of what the thief goes through. I also wrote a book called The Thief's Story. That was a long time ago, but it's that thrill of that they have to kind of give up and go straight. Hopperhead sees him and realizes there's things that need to be done, you know, and that kind of stuff, you know. Then all of a sudden you see Hopperhead standing in a church. It's that kind of redemption thing. You see Kitty next to him, you know, the lady Kitty. Not Crook, the cat. They can't take the cat to Crook. I mean, they can't take cat. They can't take the cat with them. Not necessarily. I don't think most congregations will allow cats, but maybe it happens. I don't know. I like movies with cats. Okay. And I'm missing someone. Bird. Yeah, Bird sees it from a distance. You know, it's that 1980s thing where the person's seeing it from a distance. He's watching it. It's happy for him. Kind of like in Lady Hawk. You know, whenever they finally get redeemed in a way, how Matthew Broderick and the old guy is kind of looking at them and loving what they see, seeing the love. Bird sees that they changed, and he knows that that's the story. You know, he follows them, but he doesn't expose them not until after they change, or he asks if he can. You could possibly argue that this could be a hard one to find the protagonist, and I like that. It's an ensemble piece 100%. That's why it's something I'm waiting to tackle. I'm waiting because I'm using and other ways to kind of get my my sea legs back.